Let's do that. All right,
Okay,
there you go.
so I'll back up a minute here and say the way I first met, I think it was 2014. I was on the Insurance Pro Shops mailing list, email list, which is a great list. If you're not on that list, you really should be on it. And they were promoting your Mastering Client Referrals course. And I think it was part of a bonus of buying one of their systems, which I couldn't afford at the time. But I thought, well, let me check out this Sandy Schussel guy. And I think I heard of you before, even before that. But um, so I went and checked out your site and thought, oh, well, I got the course. It was only $37, which is still $37, which is the best value out there. You really should add a zero to that, but I won't tell anybody. Um,
Yeah, but the live one isn't much more, and we're going to be talking about that later too. So,
Absolutely. But what was interesting is that, I ordered the course, I downloaded it, and I hadn't had a chance to listen to it, but you sent me an email either that day or the next day, just asking what would I like to make sure that I learn and get out of the course. And having heard from other things, I said, look, I just don't want to essentially, and I don't remember the exact email, of course, but basically, I don't want to sound needy, greedy, or creepy in asking for referrals. I don't want the gimmicks. I don't want anything like that. I want something that's heartfelt. I want something that's professional. And well, I learned that from your course, and you assured me that I would learn that. And when I went through your course, I was like, this is it. This is the way to do it. And ever since then, I've locked you in as my referral coach, and I've locked you in as you're the standard for me, and everything else is a deviation. And I haven't heard anything better. They might have a little bit of technique that's just a little different, but you've got the standard for me. And so when I started building up this group, the life insurance professional life insurance discussion group, I was happy to invite as many people as I knew in the industry. And this is why you are my group expert. Not to mention other testimonials that I've heard, because I've got another friend of mine, he's hired you as his coach, and he's used what you've talked about. And what he told me was that well, first he used what you talked about, and he got referred to two very high net worth clients using the things that you talked about. And apparently you had said, look, Steve, we need to re-engage. You need to keep this. Otherwise, I'm going to refund the rest of your money. But he's like, no, 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 no. Don't you take back that. Don't you give me back my money. I know that to you to be introduced to these people. So even if he doesn't continue, he would feel bad if you refunded his money. So there's a little fun story there. But this is why Sandy is the group expert. I wanted, and I knew he's got multiple presentations, not just on advisor production, but especially this type of concept of how do we get the referral conversations going in a way that's comfortable. And everything else, it just felt like it was a gimmick of some kind. And believe me, I've heard of all kinds of gimmicks. I had the grocery store coupon gimmick. For every name you give me, it's $1,000 a grocery store coupon. I'm like, oh my gosh, can we get any lower?
oh, that's not what I listed today, but that's great. Yeah.
That was when I was doing supplemental health insurance for another company, and I think I did it once, but it felt so weird. I'm like, I ain't doing that.
Everything shifted. Tom Hopkins used to talk about all the different kinds of closes you do. And now he doesn't talk about that anymore because it doesn't work anymore. Those kinds of slimy things like the porcupine close don't work anymore. And so, yeah, there are
Wow,
plenty of
never heard
things
of that
out
one.
there. We'll talk about that sometime. But he had the puppy dog clothes, the wedding clothes, the porcupine clothes.
Well, the wedding one. No, now the wedding one, I heard of that one from Zig Ziglar, and that one was fun. In fact, he did that as a life insurance professional, saying that I can marry you, and then he would get married to this guy.
Oh, that's
Say,
a
I
different.
promise to do this, but it was a great little story that was in Zig Ziglar's "Sell Your Way to the Top."
Yeah, yeah, and I've watched that program, but this is different. His was if the guy is hesitating and the woman wants it, he'll say, "Remember that look in her eyes when you asked her to marry you? Look at her now." Do you really want to say no to her about this now? And it's like, well, okay, close. And those were fun. But in the real world now, a perfect close is should we get the paperwork started?
Right? Yeah. Or I'll handle the paperwork. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. We ready to start?
Sounds great to me. And I'm looking at the chat. I'll monitor the chat for you if anything comes in.
Okay, great. And just like, I might see it, but if I miss it, let me know. And by the way, all of you who are on the call, hey, put anything you want in the chat, put questions in the chat, I'm going to ask you some questions, give me some responses to the questions. It's hard to make these things interactive, but I want to make it as interactive as possible. So thank you, David, for what turned out to be a great introduction. I don't think you have to do any more. Let me start with a story. About 15 years ago, I had the honor of hosting the Chairman's Council event for a broker-dealer insurance company called First Investors. Some of you may know it. Some of you may have some of their funds or their life insurance. And the Chairman's Council were the top 25 out of what then were about 800 representatives throughout the country. And part of the event was the three top people got to get up and talk about what made them successful, how they got where they got. And the first one, Pat, got up and he said, all my business comes from unsolicited referrals. People just refer people to me. I think it's because of the way I treat them. And of course it was. I think it's because of the way I treat them. And somebody asked him, well, how did you used to do it? I didn't start that way. And he said, yeah, what I used to do was I had a sheet with 10 blank lines on it. And when we got to the point where we were going to do paperwork for the sale, I would say to the wife, here, get your phone book and give me the names and phone numbers of 10 people that I can contact while Joe and I fill out the paperwork. And so that was Pat's story. The second guy up was Greg, and he was always fighting Pat for first place in the game. And Greg said, unlike most of you, I don't work at night. I work in the daytime. At night, I'm either home or 3 times a week, I play hockey. And all my business comes from either the hockey players or from referrals from the hockey players. And the third one, who was Jeff, got up. And Jeff said, look, most of my business comes from doing seminars and sitting in the schools in the 403B system. And I do a lot of that. He said, but I know I'm number 3. I would be number 1 for sure if I weren't terrified of referrals. Now, I had already started working on the referral program that basically I've been working on and updating from 20 years ago through today. And what it did for me was reinforce for me the idea that even top advisors need some help with basics. And this to me was a basic. And so we're going to start with that today. And I'm going to talk to you about what my goals are for today. And the first is you need to change the way you think about referrals so you can change the way you talk about referrals. And if you do that, you're going to have more confidence when you have the referral conversation. The second is I actually want to give you some steps from my 10-step program that I think you can use starting tomorrow if you want, starting next week for sure. And it will get you 2 new clients before the new year. I'm certain that it will if you apply yourself with it. So I'm giving you what you need. I'm giving you the parts of the program I think you can put into play right now today. And the last thing is I want to introduce you to a program that I'm going to be doing in January, where the client referral system is just part of the program, but the goal is to get you to 3 to 4 referrals every month starting in January. So that's what I want to cover today. The first thing I want to do, though, is I want to talk to you about a distinction that some people make between referrals and introductions. When I talk about referrals, I'm talking about introductions. The way that some people in the industry separate the two is a referral is really when you're talking to someone and they give you a name and they say, yeah, it's okay to use my name when you call them. So that's what they're talking about as a referral. An introduction is where they actually say, hey, listen, I'll give him a call and I'll introduce you to him. And so it's an actual introduction as opposed to a referral. If you hear me use either word, I'm talking about introductions. I'm not talking about that first kind of referral, which I just don't think works very well. So that's where I want to go. Now, the reason I'm starting with that is because just this month in Selling Power magazine, they came out with a study of what's effective in sales. And what they determined was that 1% of all cold calls turn into sales. 5% of all cold leads turn into sales. 55% of all referrals, that's not the introductions, the referrals turn into sales. And get this, 80% of all introductions turn into sales. So the first thing that I can tell you is that, hey, if you want to have something that closes, where you don't have to worry that you're going to go through all the work and they're not going to work with you, 80% of all introductions turn into sales. Now, I want to tell you briefly how I know this works. A lot of you know me. Some of you have actually been through the program that I'm going to be talking about later. I know this works because in my last life, in my former life, I was an attorney with a referral-based practice. All my business came from referrals. It was a six-figure business even in the 70s, and I know that referrals work. When I decided that I hated being an attorney and I wanted to do something else, I started a seminar business that led me to this broker-dealer, First Investors Life Insurance Company. And I eventually became their national sales training director. And basically, I learned two things while I was teaching and training reps to go out and do their business. And one was that top advisors are different. And there are a lot of ways that they're different, but one of them has to do with what I call disciplines. And actually in the ebook I wrote, I say I really should have called them hot tubs because disciplines just sound so boring and hard. I called them 16 disciplines. And if you want that, you go to my website, sandyschussel.com, and you can get a free copy of that ebook that gives you the 16 that I picked. There are probably 100, but I picked 16 of them. Also on YouTube, I started a playlist on my YouTube channel, Sandy Schussel, where I interview top of the table advisors and found out like what they do, how they do it. And I can tell you that most of them build their business on introductions. That's the way that it works. And being the national sales training director also got me the opportunity to start working on a referral system. I've got a complete, simple, 10-step, painless referral system that I'm going to be actually walking you through the steps of later. I've written 2 books. The High Diving Board is about overcoming fear, and the Become a Client Magnet is about how you get and keep clients once you get them. I have my own blog that I've been writing for about 12 years now that you can get on my newsletter list. And again, just by going to the website, and it's called Reaching. But I've also written dozens of articles for Think Advisor and the MDRT blog. I've written a lot of articles for them recently. MDRT Academy, if any of you are familiar with it, asked me to be one of their instructors. And the thing that they wanted me to teach was what makes a top advisor different from the rest of us. So I have that working for me. And I'm also an Insurance WebEx featured mentor. And as David mentioned, I'm on the faculty at Insurance Pro Shop. Jeremy and Lou are good friends of mine. So if you work with them at all, We always exchange ideas. Actually, Jeremy and I yesterday were interviewed together on a program. So this is how I know, this is why I know that what I'm going to be showing you today definitely works. But let me start by asking about you. And here's where I want you to participate. I want you to get into the chat and tell me if any of this sounds like you. And if it does, and one particularly resonates with you, tell me what that one is. So we start with, you're marketing all over the place, and you're advertising, you're trying to run events, you're networking, waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and going to BNI, and you're networking in networking groups. You're trying to work on social media. You're trying to buy leads. You're doing all those things, and you're not really getting the results that you want. If that sounds like you, let me know. You're overwhelmed because here's what happens. Do I get involved in social media? If I do I do LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? Do I do any of those things? And what should my profile look like? And maybe I shouldn't even be doing that. What can I do on this side? Do I buy leads? How do I buy leads? There's so many choices that we get overwhelmed and we don't look at the basics anymore. And so you end up with trouble with that. And now you're overwhelmed by all of that. And some of us who get overwhelmed start chasing shiny new objects. Every time somebody shows me a program for $2,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, you run out and buy the program, and you work it for about 3 weeks, and then you don't do it anymore because it doesn't really work for you. How many of you have shiny object syndrome? And David's got his hand up because, yeah, that's what happens. We don't know what to do, so we're doing everything. And when it comes to referrals, you avoid asking for them because it feels needy and awkward, and you don't want to be salesy, and you don't want to get rejected because that's all ugly. And so as a result of all of these things, or any of these things, you're not getting in front of enough quality, qualified prospects. Let me see a response here from you guys, and tell me, like, yeah, this sounds like me. This sounds like something that happens to me. Anybody? Yeah, just some straight yeses, all of the above. Yeah, oh, that's honest. Come on, more of you can participate. Great. Yes. Avoiding, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and avoiding becomes a big problem. We'll talk more about that later. Good. All right, David, I actually saw those for myself, so you didn't have to chime in with them, but we'll get into some where you do chime in. So my belief is that all of these challenges come simply from not getting enough qualified introductions, referrals, not getting enough of them. And it just makes me think that, what if you did? What would change in your business? What would change in your life? What if you could count on getting 3 or 4 new referrals a month, new business from 3 or 4 sources a month, besides whatever else you're doing? What if, and how would your life be different? How would your business be different if these were easy to ask for, and you had the language and the systems you needed in place for the whole referral process? And what would your life, your business be like if referrals just started coming to you on a regular basis and you didn't even have to ask? Now, probably everyone on this call has had it happen to them a few times, but what if it was like every week where people were just sending those to you? I mean, how much more powerful and how much better would you feel about your life if that's what was happening? So let me tell you why it's not happening.
But Sandy, if I may, quick. I also want to make sure we talk about the fact that we don't want to stop what we're doing now, because whatever you're doing now is either working or not working as well. But the idea of whether you're buying leads or you're calling on a list, doing cold calls, whatever it is, but if we can begin to have a path to transition from that, no matter how you're doing your marketing now, that's what I love about this, of the way you teach it, is because we can transition from however we're marketing and doing business now to eventually becoming referral only, or rather professional introductions only.
Yeah, that's that
Beautiful thing.
shiny object thing. I'm not asking anybody to do that. I want you to supplement what you're doing with this. And then, when I'm coaching someone in my private coaching, we talk about eliminating the things that don't really work. And one of my favorite quotes is from Warren Buffett, who said the difference between a successful person and a really successful person is that the really successful person says no to almost everything. And our problem is we don't say no to anything because, any way I can get a client, if I find somebody who's breathing and has money and is willing to sit down with me, we're good. Let's see what we can do. And so, yeah, don't stop everything else. The reason that you're not getting the kinds of results you want now, and there are a lot of them, but the three main ones, especially when it comes to referrals, is the way that you're looking at and asking for introductions is wrong. You see asking for referrals as being about you and your need for business. And that's how you talk. You talk like, well, the way I build my business and I need to build my business. And it should be about them and their need to help somebody in their life that they care about, because it's all about them. It's not about you. The second reason, I think, is that you just don't have the language. You don't have an easy, comfortable way to have that conversation. And I don't even call it asking for referrals. It's a conversation about referrals. So obviously you need a better approach and you need a better script. And we're going to give you a script. And I don't want you to struggle to write it down, because you can email me and I'll send it to you as a Word document so you can put it in your own words. But I want you to see the power of it in our conversation. And the third reason I think that those things aren't happening for you now is you don't have a system for the referral process. Maybe you get the referral, but then you don't have a consistent way that you go from that to making them a client to getting a new referral. And those were all things I wanted to address 20 years ago when I started working on a referral system. So let's look at those three areas. The first one, the way you're looking at asking for introductions is wrong. And the first thing I want to do here is show you, like, referrals are great. What's better than a referral? It doesn't cost you anything. You get the leads right on the spot and you discuss the leads. When you contact the lead, there's a built-in testimonial from the person who gave you the referral. And one of the things I talk about in my program is it actually strengthens your relationship with your client, because you're giving the client the opportunity to be a hero to his friends and family members and colleagues. So what's better than a referral? But you don't have to take like my thinking about it. I want to show you a study that just came out November 1st that just, it may blow somebody's mind. They interviewed 500 clients at every level of income. And they asked them, how did you find your advisor? In the top two ways, almost 40% was from family members' recommendations and friend recommendations. Then if you look down the list of the other ways that people found their advisors, colleagues' recommendations and recommendations from a CPA attorney or other center of influence. So 42.9% of the people in the survey said that they got their advisor through referrals. So
If I may, everybody should screenshot that right now and actually use that in a conversation if you need to. Maybe laminate that thing and just say, this is how it's done. If anybody's feeling a little bit awkward, that's a fantastic talking point. I just screenshotted it myself. I plan to use that if I need to. That's a great slide there.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I teach in my program, that you can say, most people want to find their advisors by referral. And so if you're uncomfortable about it, fine, we won't go there. But just understand, if you have a friend or family member that needs me, they're not going to tell you about their need, and they're not going to find me because you didn't bring me up to them. There are lots of ways to say this, but that's the concept. So here you have this thing that clients want to find you through introductions. Why would you be trying to find them on Facebook? Why would you be trying to find? They want to find you through introductions. And by the way, if you saw that, finding somebody online made up 9.9%. So it's like people aren't looking for you there. That's not where they want to find you. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it if it works for you. And one rule I have is, if you're doing something that I think is crazy that works, keep doing it. Ignore me. Ignore anybody who tells you what you're doing is wrong if it's working for you. So our problem is that when we think of introductions, we find them awkward and uncomfortable. And we don't want to appear needy, and we don't want to appear salesy, and we're afraid that we're going to be rejected. It's almost as if you got the check, you got the paperwork signed, and now you say, by the way, do you know anybody? And the clients go, what? You're asking us for referrals? That's it. Tear up the check, throw you out, get out of my house, don't ever come here again. Of course, that never happens, but we're looking at referrals like that. And the number one reason that we feel that way is that everything's been focused on us. It's about the way I build my business. And you know what? This isn't even your fault, because everybody learned one of these ways. And I want you to go back to the chat now and tell me if any of this resonates with you. So one way, John, Mary, the way I build my business is through referrals. So I'm going to be asking you tonight to give me the names and numbers of 3 people that I can help in the same way I'm helping you. Anybody have something like that? John, Mary, you're never going to get a bill from me. All I ask of my clients is they give me referrals. So I have a sheet here with 10 blanks on it. Will you fill it out, please? And just give me names and phone numbers of people. Or John, Mary, listen, I get paid in 2 ways. I make something from the companies that I place you with, if it's right for you. And I also get referrals from my clients. Here's a sheet. Give me 3 names and phone numbers of people that I can work with. Or this is the one I hate the most, but I've heard it about a half a dozen times in the field. Listen, I have to spend a lot of time looking for clients. And I'm wondering if you'd rather me spend time working on your account and not out looking for new clients. The best way for you to do that is to give me the names of 5 or 6 people that you would want me to contact so that I can turn them into clients. So here's what happens when you use all this stuff. If you have a branch manager or you're captive and you have a manager that says, well, or you have a mentor who says, well, this is the way you do it. So you'll do it, a couple of dozen times, and then you'll start forgetting to do it. And then you won't do it at all, and you won't make any excuses for it because it's uncomfortable, it's awkward, and it doesn't feel right.
I got another one for you, Sandy. I actually got this one from a book called Red Hot Introductions. So I've just called out the book and the author. And this one basically said, the wife and I were talking about the rising costs of education and looking at our income. We really need some help. And something like that. Basically putting our need out there, saying, I need your, I'm like, wow, that's not their problem. That's my problem.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you didn't want to help me out here, but my company is having a contest, and I'm really close to winning the contest. I just need 5 more referrals. Do you think you can help me out?
Yeah. Oh,
There's a million of those. And that's really, David, what got me started on creating that program that you tried and found worked for you. Was like, nobody wants to be introduced that way. I couldn't imagine back when I was an attorney doing that. They would laugh at me. It doesn't work. And focusing on you and your need for business, no matter how much you really need it. I mean, that's some of you on this call, or you need the business. It just doesn't work if that's the focus. And the reason for that is everything that happens in their world. All sales happen in their world. They're basically tuned, clients, centers of influence are basically tuned to the station I call WIIFM. I didn't invent that, but I love that that's out there. What's in it for me? And helping someone they care about is on that station. Helping you, well, if it's your mom, she's going to want to help you. If it's your best friend, they're going to want to help you. If it's a client you've had for years that really wants to help you and sees that you still need more business, they're going to want to help you. But for most of us, you're not in their station. You're not on their station. They are not interested in how you build your business or how to get you more business. So even if you need is great, the goal should be letting them help someone in their world, someone that they care about. So what you need to do is shift your thinking and shift your language. And the way you do that is by changing from this, the way I build my business and all those other horrible things. And some of you wrote some on your own. If you help me get a new boat, I'll give you a ride on it. I mean, from this to this, whoops, maybe not, to something more like this. Is there someone you care about that you'd want me to help if they needed the help? Now, just that one paragraph, if all you did today was just take this one paragraph, is there someone you care about if they needed the help? Let's talk about them. If all you did was that, you would immediately get more referrals than you ever did without being needy or salesy or getting rejected, because rejection's not going to happen here. So I told you that my goals today were to change the way you think about referrals. I hope we did that. I mean, I hope that's that it helped. If it didn't, I go much deeper into it in my program. And I wanted to actually give you some steps and an easy script so that you can go out tomorrow and do that. This is the meat. This is like, there's no fluff here. This is what I want you to take away from this program. And so let's jump into it. I have a 10-step system. The steps are simple. I am going to give you the basics of step 2, 3, and 4. And if you use these, they're going to make your business grow starting tomorrow. Seriously. Step 2 is having a relationship discussion. Some people call it the value discussion. To me, it's about the relationship. Step 3 is to ask for people you can talk about helping, not pouncing on them, but let's talk about somebody. And step 4 is how you get more people, more names like that. How do you harvest names? So let's jump right into it. Step 2 is having the relationship discussion. Here's a simple rule. Have this discussion with every client that you haven't had it with in the last few months. Every time you sit down with somebody to do an annual review or to check up with them quarterly or however you're working with them, have this discussion. And don't talk about referrals until you do. You know, the old rule that I used to listen to this debate, when's the best time to ask clients for referrals? On the first appointment, because you never get back in the door again, the day you make a sale, because that's the day that they're most likely to respond to. The way to know is to ask them. And so we're going to talk about how to ask them. There's 6 questions you can ask. The first one, you almost always ask anyway to get into it. The last one's the only one that's really important and you have to ask every time. But in between, there are questions that build up your case for talking about referrals. And there are two goals here. One is to get them to say out loud how great you are. And believe me, if they don't say that you're great, you got to fix your service before you ask for referrals. And the second is for you to hear them say it, because then you're going to not worry anymore about, the confidence that you need to ask. It's going to be in with the clients. So here's the questions. First is, John and Mary, I told you that before we were finished here tonight, I wanted to take the temperature of your relationship and ask you about how we're doing. I mean, I think you're happy, but you tell me, how are we doing? And the likelihood is you're going to get a very positive answer. Oh, David, you're doing a great job. We really like you. You're terrific, blah, 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 blah. Now, the questions you can ask are questions like these, especially if you've never asked before. You were looking for a lot, you were talking to a lot of advisors, I remember, a lot of agents, and you ended up selecting me. What made you start with me? What made you select me over these other ones you were looking at? Listen to what they say. And then we went through bad times, and I know you couldn't get paid on something, and then the pandemic hit, and we got through all these things. What made you stay with me? What made you continue to work with me? I like this one. Tell me the things that I'm doing that you like. And when they give you one, you ask the magic question, oh, great, what else? What else? Get them to talk about, get them to say, hey, I like that you do, you always listen to us and you explain everything to us and blah, 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 because that's going to make them feel good. It's going to make you feel good. Then ask them a question that a lot of you are terrified to ask. What could I do more of that I'm not doing, or less of that I am doing? Ask that question. Don't be afraid of it. If they give you a list of things, well, I wish you called me more often, and I wish you weren't so pushy, or whatever it is. I'm not asking for referrals tonight, but now I know what to do with this client. And so that's what you want. And then here's the two-part question that you ask every time. I don't care what else you ask them this question, and ask it just this way. Is there anything more I could do for you now or in the future? Is there anything more I can do for you now or in the future? The likelihood is they're going to say, no, you're doing a great job. That's great. And then you want to just follow it up with, just let me know if anything ever comes up. I want to make sure you're well taken care of. Now, all of this is part of step 2 in referral mastery, and we can go deeper into all of these. But if you end your client meeting with this conversation, especially if you tell them you're going to have this conversation, you're going to see that you're ready for step 3. And step 3 is asking for people you can talk about. John, I'm glad that the two of you feel this way. And I'm guessing that you have friends and family members who haven't done the work that you have, or aren't as happy with their situation and might want to have a conversation with me. Well, of course, they're not thinking of that necessarily, but this is the introduction to what you're going to say in step 3. And that's going to look like this. I wouldn't expect you to know for sure, because we don't usually talk about our finances with one another. But if they might need my help, or at least they should know about me, who comes to mind that you would want to talk about with me first? So the key here is talk about, but what's also key here too is get rid of the objection. I don't know their situation. Tell them, I know you're not going to know their situation. What I want to know is, if they need help, would you want me to help them? Would you want to at least ask them if they need the help? If you do this, the likelihood is that they're going to mention someone. And I don't care if they give you a name or not, you're going to go back and talk about it. So if they say, well, maybe we should be talking about my brother. Great, let's talk about your brother. Here's where most advisors blow it. Right at this moment, because we say, well, tell me about your brother. The second you do that, you've got one referral. So step 4 says, don't do that. What you do instead is say, great, let's talk about your brother for a minute or two and see whether it might make sense to arrange an introduction with him. Who else should we be talking about? And they'll say, well, my aunt probably could use him. Good, great. Let's talk about your aunt. Who else? And the magic question before was what else? Now the magic question is who else? And don't blow this. If you say anyone else, that's where it's going to end. If you do this, you might only get one, but I've seen it go above 10. And it's just keep saying, great, we'll talk about them too. Who else? Who else? And then in this program, I talked about how to go back and talk about each one, but just do this and you're going to get 1 or 2 great referrals every time that you do it.
You got to interrupt in there, Sandy, because that part, if you go back to that slide, figuring out if it makes sense to arrange an introduction or not is so key, because sometimes some people think, well, if you're asking who needs help, they might think who needs remedial help, who needs help balancing their checkbook, and they might give you the bottom of the rung. And so it's like, well, no, I really do my best work with people who, and you can describe more of an ideal client profile at that point. Who do you know that fits that category, and make sure that so you can pick which ones make the best sense. And this is your chance to kind of filter, sift, sort, and select who it's going to make the most sense to be introduced to, and it doesn't have to be everyone.
Yeah. And by the way, David, I want to go back to this one for a minute, where I added the words, or at least should know about me. That's because you resisted the helping language. And I figured, well, let's put them both in there. That both. but
That's right. I want to be seen as the Apple of financial services, not the bottom of the rung. Who needs my help? No, and that's a me thing. I fully admit
but
that
that's
one.
fine, because you have the option of doing both, doing one, doing the other. And all of my work is I want it to be in your language. Nobody talks like I do. You talk like you do, but you need the basics. And the basics here are things like asking who else, things like saying if it makes sense. And so grab that. So that's steps 2, 3, and 4 as promised.
Amanda just asked, can you go back 2 slides? So I don't know what she's looking for necessarily.
Oh, there you go. There's the first slide. Amanda, is that what you need? You know what? I have it available, David, so we don't want to hold it up. So Amanda, just email me and I'll get at sandy@sandyschussel.com and I will get you the whole thing so you don't have to take it apart piece by piece. Here's the point. If you listen to that, did you hear anything that was needy or salesy or could even get you rejected? They don't reject you if there's someone they want to pay it forward to. They don't reject you. And the pay it forward idea, I didn't used to say it that way, but David, again, you influenced that. So I thought you might want to know that I listen as well as talk. So if you want 2 new clients by the end of the year, it's simple. Change how you think and talk about referrals, and then use the client-focused language that I just gave you with the 3 steps, just in that order that I've shared. And I promise you, if you're not going to get new clients, you're certainly going to get 3 or 4 new referrals that could turn into clients in January. So stay with that. So all of this was stuff that I wanted to cover. The last thing I want to cover, and don't go away for this, because as we go through the 10 steps, you're going to see some things that even if I didn't give you anything but the steps, will help you with the referral process. So it's a 10-step simple system. You don't have to copy this. I'm going to go through them step by step and at least give you the basics of what we talk about when we talk about the system for client referrals. And the first one is to plant referral seeds. You can't surprise clients by at the end of the meeting saying, oh, by the way, I want to talk about this, because you will absolutely 100% of the time get, I can't think of anyone. So I give you at least 3 ways to let clients know that there's going to be a discussion about introductions. So they're not surprised. They have time to think about possible referrals. And this is the interesting part. You have to have the discussion. Because if I promise you that our agenda tonight includes 5 different things we're going to talk about, in-force illustration and some new things and whatever, and I can't get to it because the appointment's too long, I want to apologize for not getting to this last discussion and set it up for next time. And it forces you not to forget to have the referral discussion. Step 2, I gave you the 6 questions. When I teach the system, we go in and work with these questions a little more. Step 3, again, you want the script, email me, sandy@sandyschussel.com. I'll make sure you get the script. And if you join the program I'm going to be talking about, you're going to get lots of scripts. I mean, a great deal of it is scripted. When I script something, it's always with the idea that you're going to tweak it to work for you. And part of my coaching is to get you to do that. You don't have to use my words. I've seen referral systems where they say, ask this way, and it's so stodgy that you just like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not working that way. So that's step 3. Step 4, we talked about harvesting names. Great, we'll talk about them. Who else should we be talking about? And for this step, I also talk about using an introductions book, and whether you should or shouldn't and how you use it, and how to handle people who have already referred to you, because there are different ways of approaching people where they have a record of referring to you, and you should have 1 or 2 ways to handle that as well. Step 5 is dealing with referral resistance. We start with all the ways clients might say, I can't think of anyone. I love when they say, I don't know anyone. Oh, really? You've lived in a cocoon your whole life? Oh, it's not, it's an objection, and it's not the real objection. All of those things, I can't think of anyone, nobody I know has money, everybody I know is all set, blah, blah, blah. All those things are a sign that 1 of 4 real things is in their thinking. We talk about those real things and how you deal with them. And I'll give you a very simple way that isn't like feel, felt, found, or one of those old salesy things, but a really simple way to overcome their resistance, or at least set it up so you can bring it up again. Again, no rejection, no salesiness, none of the things that you're worried about show up in this system. Number 6 is important. It's learn as much as you can about the referral. And we explore how to open up a discussion about a potential referral in a way where the clients forget that this is a referral process. I mean, they know you're in a referral process, but they forget because we're talking about someone they care about, and you're asking questions about that person where they get an opportunity to tell you, and it's a process that's really easy to learn. Step 7 is arrange introductions. The old way, give me their name, give me their phone number. How do you spell that? That just doesn't work anymore. I don't know that it ever worked really well, but it just doesn't work anymore. So in this step, we explore what does work in its place, and we have some simple language to set up an actual introduction that's absolutely bound to result in an appointment. And you looked at those statistics at the beginning, end up in a sale. In step 8, we talk about contacting the referrals, making sure it's not a cold call, how to leave messages that actually work for you, should be works that work for you, how to hold the referral's attention on the telephone, how to set an appointment that'll actually stick so you don't end up with an empty chair in your office or a dark porch if you're out on the road, and how to handle referrals when you're super busy. It always amazes me. I get a referral from a client and I'm busy, so I put it aside for 3 weeks. Now I'm uncomfortable about calling the referral, and I'm uncomfortable about calling the client back and asking them to give it to me again. It's just, there's a way to handle it even when you're super busy. We talk about that. Number 9 is we talk about how you thank the client. Do I send them a $25 gift card to Starbucks, or is there a better way to thank them? And the hint here is there's a better way to thank them. And we talk about that. And number 10, I call close the circle. You want to finish this with having the client, the new client, thank the one that gave you the referral. And that opens the door to get more referrals from the first guy. But the second one now is going to want to be treated the same way. And so he's more likely to give you referrals without you even asking. And then there's a way to ask for referrals that includes the fact that acknowledges the fact that they found you through a referral. And we talk about that as well. So this is just one part of a program that I'm offering in January. This is the third time I'm offering it. I don't offer it often because it's not really a moneymaker for me. Most of the work I do is with individual clients, but there's such a need out there. I want to make sure that you get this. And so it's not just, the program's called the Referral Mastery Workshop Program. It's not just about client referral. So here's what we talk about. We're going to get deeper into that referral mindset. I don't believe anybody should ever feel that a referral is something I'm doing for myself at the expense of the client. It has to be just the opposite. You're talking to people about getting help for people that they care about. We're going to go through the entire 10-step system in detail. But I'm also going to give you a simple system for getting referrals through your network. Some of you kind of know how to do that. There's a really simple process to develop that. Sometimes we don't know how to find the centers of influence. You can do that through your clients, and I'll teach you how to do that through your clients. And probably the most important part is how to make yourself incredibly referable so you can get referrals without even asking. And that comes from understanding what an engaged client is and how you engage a client. And if you know that, you're going to see a tremendous increase in the number of referrals you get, even though you didn't ask for them. And all throughout these is the question of the pandemic and social media. And I want to make sure we address that in all of these areas. So that's what's included in the program. It's 6 weeks starting January 11th. And here's what it includes. Every Tuesday, I'll do a live Zoom workshop session. And if you can't make it, no problem. It's recorded and you're going to get the information. Live is much better, but you'll get it recorded. But what I wanted to add to that is a Wednesday group coaching session. The last time I did this was after David, was a participant. The last time I did this, sometimes I had 2 people show up. Sometimes I had 30 people show up. I don't really care. I'll record those sessions too. And you can ask questions about anything. It doesn't have to be about prospecting. It can be about how to run an office and how to deal with a client problem or whatever it is. We'll just have these group coaching sessions. But what I also want to make sure everybody who signs up for this gets is one 90-minute private coaching session with me on your whole business to try and make it work and try to do it, try to make it work well for them. What you can expect from this is you're going to get one new client meeting from referrals every week. If you can turn 80% of those or 3/4 of those into business, you're going to have 3 new clients every month. Now, I don't know how you value a client. If I start with the smallest number and don't count lifetime value or any of the other good things we measure, and it's $500, imagine what a difference it'll be in your career to have 3 of those a month. And hopefully 4, and I really see that as a minimum. So it could be thousands of dollars, but it's $397. And if that's too steep for you, there's a 4-payment plan. All the details at least a dozen testimonials. Everything is on the web page that I'm going to be sending you to. You can also find a direct link to that web page at the top of the chat if you scroll back. You can find out there's also a guarantee that I talk about, so you're not going to lose the money. But I also want to do one more thing. I'd like to see how many people I can enroll before December 16th. So I'm taking the one private session, and people will pay me $500 for that session, and I'm going to roll it into 2 private sessions. So if you sign up before December 16th, we'll do 2 of those, because I want to see, like, first of all, do you want this? Is it going to help you? And look, I'm not a hard seller. I don't believe in hard selling. I teach methods that don't include hard selling. So if it's not right for you, fine. But if it is, I try to make it as reachable as possible without actually spending money on it. Please do it or don't do it. That's up to you. And again, it's guaranteed, so you're not going to lose your money. And if anything, you're going to end up with $10,000 more than you had. If you don't, I'll keep working with you for free until you do. So if you are interested, go to the enrollment page. I put it in big letters over here so you can get to it. SandySchussel.com, Mastery 22. The link's in the chat. You can email me for it if you just don't know how to do this and it's too complicated to do it now. At SandySchussel.com. All you got to do is spell my last name right, and you got it. You know, you're good. If you're interested in doing this, and there's a link there as well. If you're on the fence and you're thinking about it, spend 10 or 15 minutes on the phone with me. Schedule a time. We'll talk, and we'll get you in if you want to be, and not in if you don't think it's right for you. And that's the whole program. So here's what I want to do now. If you don't have questions, don't run away without just giving me one takeaway that you got out of this. I'd love to see what you had to say. If you do have questions, I'll stay on as long as you want and answer any questions you have about anything. I'm completely open about it. I love making this work for you. I have all the licenses you have and then some, but I don't do my own production. I help you do your production. That's my job. That's my work, and I love what I do. So join me or not. Thank you for being part of this. If you're running off, and if you do have questions, David's going to field them, and we're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
And if you found value in this program, please go back to the professional insurance agent discussion group and post what you learned. Go back to the link, say, this is what I learned, and if you want to share, are you moving forward or not? I mean, believe me, this is well worth it. And I think I bring you the best of some of the best ideas out there. So, but if I don't, tell me otherwise. So.
Well, I hope I lived up to that today, David. Yeah.
Oh, and then some. It's fantastic the way that just those pivots, you know, and the way Tom talks about it, just the little changes, and that's all it needs. And you've got it.
Yeah, great. Right. So looking at some of the takeaways, someone says he's moving forward. That's great. Okay. He likes my calm, gentle manner. Yeah, you know, I don't want to put anybody to sleep either. No, but thank you.
Well, it's kind of fun. See, Sandy, you don't, you're not a hard close, but you certainly make it hard for someone to say no.
Yeah, you know, it's like my belief about sales is that selling is asking the right questions so the client decides for himself that he wants what you're offering.
Yes.
And I talk about this all the time. If you're telling them it's not going to work, but if they say it, they own it, and it is going to work. So let's see, any questions here? We need to takeaways, introductions over referrals. Yeah, there's a big difference, and you want introductions. And somebody thanked us. It looks like there aren't questions. I'll wait another minute, and then David, you and I will ask each other questions, and we'll be done. Great. Okay, looks like we're done, and nope, not yet. Yeah, I knew there were a lot of people on the call who were here for a refresher, you know.
Yeah.
So we're getting a couple of those. I have one from Canada was here. I need a refresher. Okay, we'll remind you. Okay, somebody's hopping off. Well, if we're still here when you get back, we'll we'll help you out.
That long. Okay.
Okay. It looks like there aren't questions. Of course, if you do have them, get on the link, get on that page, sandyschussel.com/mastery22, and scroll to the bottom. There's a place to set up a time to talk with me, ask your question out loud, or just email me at sandy@sandyschussel.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has. And in the meantime, David, it looks like that's a wrap. Thank you for your support through this thing. It was great. It was way cooler having somebody there to challenge me.
It wasn't that hard. Okay.
Oh, I see. And let's see.